as a newbie or even as an already established owner, an already experienced rider, how do you maintain this? So I have sectioned it into three main portions: front, middle, and rear. We start with the front. The front end covers your upside down forks and also your rim and also your dashboard and headlight. That is what I have sectioned as the front. We start with your rim. Your rim is a 17-inch, as much as it is in the rear. The 17-inch spoked rim needs maintenance in the sense those spokes become loose periodically as you ride your bike. It develops a wobble, and that wobble will make your bike feel very weird at the front. So when the bike is new, it may not have that wobble at all. However, after riding either through cities, you've come across potholes, whether you are a person who loves off-roading or not, rather actually off-roaders, so to speak. Off-roaders, you are the ones that are at greatest risk. Every time you go to change your oil, that is in between 1,000 to 2,500 kilometers, always check your front rim. Are the spokes loose? The only way to see that, my trick, you can adopt it. I normally stand on both foot pegs as I'm riding on tarmac. If the road is clear ahead, you have to consider safety. I stand up and I look down at the front wheel. You will easily see a wobble. The other thing that will bring about a wobble on your front wheel is your bearings in the wheel hub. Now, there are some bearings there. The number is 6201 RS. That is the number of the front wheel bearings. I'll mention also the rear wheel bearings, they are what number. When the bearings get worn out, or rather they have achieved their lifetime or their lifespan, they will begin to make the front rim wobble. You can easily see it, you can easily feel it on the handlebars. That is not to be mistaken for low tire pressure at the front. Usually, to have a definitive outlook on what exactly is wobbling at the front, always fill your front with 32 psi. Once you feel that, then ride your bike. If it is still wobbling, that is now either your bearings or your rim. The bearings will last up to around 3,000 kilometers. If you're doing city riding, they will last all the way up to 5,000 kilometers, but it's advisable to check on them every 2,000 kilometers. Always check your bearings, see if they are still okay. If they are not, have them replaced. They are fairly cheap, they are not too expensive. Your disc brake system has that one huge rotor and the caliper, and there are two pads inside there. Now, they normally get worn out. In motorcycles, we say riding with your front brake is always the best because braking is covered 70% by the front. So, your brake pads do get worn out, and they do get worn out with the intensity at which you use your braking. The more you apply, the more you rely. The keyword here is, hey, you who are newbies, the more you rely on your brakes to bring your bike to a stop, the faster the brake pads wear out. Combine front braking with engine braking. That means changing down gears to bring your bike to a safe stop. Usually, in most cases, you never really have to apply your rear brakes. I'll tell you where your rear braking comes in. Today is just maintenance. So always check your brake pads. If you hold the front lever and you feel as if it's getting too close to your handlebars or to the main throttle handle, as months go by, as weeks go by, physically check the brake pads. You will see at what point they are in their wearing out. They are locally available. You can easily get them. We have a support group on WhatsApp. I'll leave the links in the description so that as you're reading, you're able to find out, or you're able to click and join the group. I am one of the admins. You will be allowed to join. The other thing about the front side now is the upside down forks, or the upside down suspension system. This one, I'll tell you the truth, my own experience, you can do it differently. I did not service them up to and until 60,000 kilometers, and they were still okay. And I've been doing long distance riding and a fair amount of off-roading. You can approach the matter in your own way. How so? You can ideally check, with that experience I've had, you can check and service your front suspension every 10,000 kilometers. It is fairly stress-free. The only issues I have come across is 1 or 2 bikes. And when I say 1 or 2 bikes, it's always 2 in 10 or 1 in 10. The front upside down suspension fork seals, some of them, maybe they were not properly placed in manufacturing in the factory, or something happened when you're riding. Some get loose, some get worn out. Those rubber seals get worn out and the oil begins to pour out. Once you see oil on your front end, anywhere around the brakes or anywhere around the rim, just know you are leaking suspension fluid or suspension oil. You need to service those suspensions, that suspension system immediately. Otherwise, your ride is going to feel very, very hard, very, very difficult. We go now to the top end of your suspension system, so I'm keeping it as fast as possible. The dashboard has no issues. Unless you have a head-on collision, it gets damaged, you can replace it, it's available, no issues at all. The other one is the headlight. For the 2022 up to 2023 models, they didn't have a very good headlight system. Most of us have had to replace the bulb inside with aftermarket bulbs that are much brighter. The ones that came later, that is the 2024 models, those ones have been having LED lights. They are a bit brighter, but I've seen most riders have also had to install auxiliary lights to maximize visibility at night and also during the day. It's something you can do. If you're not a night rider so much, you don't really need them. You can just run with your headlight on. The other one I almost forgot before I finish with the front is your cables, your speedo cable and also your hydraulic fluid, brake fluid cable. On the left side is your speedo cable. Every single time, if you're a newbie and you buy your bike, make sure your speedo cable has been attached firmly to the front mudguard. You can use cable ties for that. It's very easy. You can do it yourself, even at home, even after you've picked the bike, but the current retailers in the market will do that for you already, but you have to check. Usually the speed sensor at the bottom tends to bring up some issues in terms of getting worn out at around 20,000 kilometers. That is where you begin to see funny issues happening on your dash. Or sometimes you're doing maybe just 20 kilometers per hour and you see it jumping all the way to 188. That is not you overspeeding. That is merely the speedo cable or the speedo sensor getting worn out. You can replace it. Replacements are available. On the other side is a brake fluid cable. That one has no issues. The only thing you need to remember is to top up your brake fluid at the master cylinder at the top of your handlebars. You can do that yourself at home. All you need is a star screwdriver. Open it up, top up your brake fluid, close it, that's it, you're done. In general, if you have any extra switches you've added on your handlebars and also the main right and left switch, buy WD-40, the original WD-40, not these generic ones we have in the market. The original one is normally in a can of white and blue, written clearly there, WD-40. always spray that WD-40 inside those switches to keep corrosion out. That is the best you can do for your handlebar. The other two main components of the front end that are crucial to your riding that you must pay close attention to is your clutch cable and your front brake system. Now, your clutch cable needs to be serviced. It gets dry. Do not make a mistake of just riding and you don't know what's going on. It gets dry every single time you go to change your oil, either at 1,000 or 2,000 kilometers. Have the clutch cable checked. Have it adjusted if you need to adjust, but make sure it is checked and serviced. Usually, the mechanics tend to pour some old engine oil through inside there. It is cleaned using, sometimes I've seen petrol being used or kerosene being used. They pour it down the cable, it cleans it up nicely. Then they pour some old oil inside there, and then that insulates it or protects it against corrosion. That is something you can also do for yourself at home if you have the technical skills. That is basically the front end.